Stubborn crickets, isn't it? Remember, crickets is not just not doing nothing. It's not doing everything you need to do right and correct. So this is what we have to focus on. And I'm seeing, again, a lot of this. And maybe people think I'm sounding like I know know it all. I'm not. I only focus on the things that I've researched myself to know and experienced, really more than it. Taking my research, as I told someone I don't remember where I said it, what I'm doing now is I'm taking the research I've done over decades and starting to apply it and feeling comfortable in a way to apply it. That when I focus on a lot of these things that I talk about, and I say people doing it wrong, it may sound like I'm know-it-all that way, but it's really not. I'm focusing on some information that maybe a lot of people haven't. And I've seen throughout my history of research in other people, certain groups of people, and they can be quite large groups of people, who claim to have expertise, and then they start down their path of experience, and then you watch how they get decimated and how they get taken care of. These same character types keep coming back to do the same problems over and over. And now we kind of see, maybe that's the psyop, maybe that's the infiltrator. As I may identify them as the pretender, but it's not. It's a pretender in a different way. It's that what they call that counter intel pro or whatever the term is. See, I don't even get into all that, and I should get into it a little better so that I can just speak about it, but I don't. There is a way to approach certain things in the subject matter areas I've studied, which really is comprehensive, but where I've focused. There's certain things that have to be done because that's the way the occupier needs to have it done. I understand what I just said there, and so there's no silver bullets either. And I'm kind of leaning on thinking about this happening over in Burns, but I don't know, I didn't want to touch too much of this. But at any rate, in the meantime, since last week, I was contacted by John Stadtmiller, and I'm saying this now because I'll forget it by another hour, to talk to him on his show called National Intel Report on Tuesday. And I think his broadcast happens at 4 p.m. Central Time. It's like, I think 2 p.m. Pacific Time. And so he's asked me to talk about this BLM condition that's happening in the West. And thank you to the listener who told him about me to contact me. So we're going to have a communication that way on Tuesday. I've talked to him just a little bit. Seems like a good guy. Seems like he's up against a ton of things, like most of us are who are trying to get the word out. I don't really know more than that, but I don't know where we're going to go after I was talking to him. I don't know what new ideas I've given him. So normally, what I end up talking when I talk to somebody before we go and do a broadcast, the discussion might change over the moment because of the type of information I'll bring. So just want to let you know, and this Tuesday, I'm scheduled to be on National Intel Report with John Stadtmiller of the Republic Broadcasting Network, and we'll see what we can talk about on the BLM federal agencies. I have an idea where I want to go with it, and it'll be in how to explaining you in a place where I'm not the host, where I'm responding, explain to people really what we have the power in our hands. And let me get back to the crickets now on this issue of why BLM is in focus and why Stadtmiller got in touch with me, and because the listener said you need to talk with me on these issues, that and I didn't want to get into it with the Harney County thing, but in a way, this all happens for a reason, and I probably got into it just about I needed to, just to watch. And I have I have my own eyes to look at this stuff, and I have my vocabulary, which is my filter. And I can readily tell you when someone in the subject matter areas I've studied, and you're going to find this on your own. All y'all that already do this, you already know this. But those of you that haven't, that kind of sit on the sidelines waiting to jump in, you may not quite appreciate this, that it's really not knowing at all. It's just knowing what you know. And I can listen very carefully. And sometimes you got to be careful. I try not to judge, but you got to be careful. I give them a few mistakes in the vocabulary, and then I listen for the context. And for me, on that subject matter area that I believe I understand and am not just internet-wise, but experientially wise, then I make a decision on whether or not things are going in the right direction for where I can see the issue needs to go. That all prepared now. I have to tell you, after watching a committee of safety meeting on the internet, I'm not sure if Hammond is aware, and I'm not sure if this is a setup directed by that to empower these people, but the Hammond issue is this is becoming a setup for another takedown, as I've identified before. If Hammond Bundy and his group, and I apologize for not knowing the name, I don't want to get buried in this thing. This is a bad deal all around, no matter how we look at it. And it takes a whole lot more better minds than I see dealing with it right now to deal with it. Who I just saw jump in on this Committee of Safety's meeting and heard from the lips of the people that are on the Committee of Safety. And the fact that there was out-of-staters running that meeting on a Harney County Committee of Safety, which is somewhat of a dubious kind of a committee anyway in a regard. It kind of follows the same mistakes as I've avoided for a long number of years. There's other ways to get around to do what they say. In fact, the whole purpose of a committee of safety is the police powers that are now vested in a county. And that's the key right here, because what I understand and do, and what we do, and what we have evidence of, and I can now turn you to an evidence that we are effectual, right out of the congressman's mouth himself. But this Harney County thing being picked up with now the Oath Keepers are stepping in to act as a so-called buffer. And everybody that presented subject matter material on land disposal law and rules and the processes that are supposed to happen don't understand what they're talking about. In fact, the Committee of Safety woman said, "We don't know." And if Hammond Bundy is going to hand this thing over to them, this has to be a setup, either whether it's by ignorance or by plan. And so I want to, again, just be on the record. You need to really look through what's going on. I'm wishing the best. This is a real opportunity. I can tell you, for the limited amount of communication lines, and I don't know that we really have any, but I've been talking to some of the guys I work with and some of them that they work with, and we have maybe a way to get some information to Ammon Bundy, to try and explain there's a real problem. And in this town, you have to understand these little towns, they're like fish bowls, and there's apparently a real fear in the people that want to do right against the people that the repercussions will come from if they speak out. Now, all the ranchers apparently are with this because they really understand this plunder and this crime. There's a corruption in the system, but there's a crime in the people that are actually running this, the government official, the offices. Literally crime. I can't almost speak anymore without getting right to this is a criminal act, what they're doing. And so let me point out a couple of things. And I really hate to talk about it because I find out when I talk about things and I clarify them, people who are the pretenders, again, I've told you, these people they have to be trained. I don't know of anybody that does this naturally. You're trained to be the chameleon because you're on a mission. And it's a mission of whatever, division, distraction. It's a mission of, what do you call them? Darn it, the word fell right out of my mouth. Where you waste your time. What's another word for wasting your time? All this stuff gets thrown in and nobody knows how to cut through it. And this is one of the little specialties I've had on these narrow subject matters. And this is, I think, what angers people. I have a lot of people that don't like me that do this. They don't like me. And all I'm asking them, all I'm doing, folks, is I'm saying, well, your need doesn't meet the law. And I apply this thing that I've told you before. I'm only going to name the word. I'm not going to explain how I know how it's been done wrong and the people don't know how to do it. And I'm going to suggest to you that we have people behind the scenes contacting us on how to do this. These are people that I would have suspected ought to have known with what they promote in the world are coming to us to find out whether or not certain things within the context of coordination were proper, and if properly done would have solved the problem. I'll give you that answer. Yes, it would have. I won't tell you how we know how that would have worked or how it works, because we're finding out that it's not only enough that you are passionate to have, if you're in the position of a county commissioner or a sheriff that has they're part of the government that have the right to coordinate. It's not enough that you want to, is that you don't understand as an official that you will be set against when you assert this. And you will be defeated at every turn, if you're not paying attention to what you need to know, by the attorneys themselves. Again, this is not opinion. We've already got our judgment and default. The Bar Association's in it, folks. And at every turn, you will look at every official that's has some kind of you better go to your legal counsel to get your legal advice about these things. Folks, these are the main control points. We know that. Coordination, properly applied, cuts through all that nonsense. And I heard some people who want to proclaim some knowledge about this process, which is really not a process. It's really an interesting thing. I'm going to call it a process because everyone thinks it's a process. So I have to talk in a little bit of code to you here. I'm not going to tell you much, but I'm going to tell you. It's a process that they think it is, that is the stopgap between what is supposed to go on. It's the power. It's a passive power in the people in the county who have the police power interest to protect the general public against this type of encroachment, whether it be by state or federal. Your counties are your last line of control. That's why that sheriff that everyone wants to call a constitutional sheriff is so all important. He's supposed to keep the peace. He's supposed to arrest breaches to the peace. You'd think that these sheriffs that want to say that they're following their oath would be the last line of protection to your producers and property owners. They don't have a clue. And then we find out when we work with them, they only go so far. And then you start to hear what the answer is, and you realize the federal imposition on people's psyches alone, the threat of the federal imposition is enough to keep people scared, even your constitutional sheriffs. If you didn't understand how far down in the stinking abyss we are, that these things in law were the things I found that would be, it's the narrow path that we're told to follow, it's a narrow path, that is unassailable. That's how I know these people. I just apply the law, the standard, against what people say, and I can out you, whether or not I want to tell that to anybody, even you. I can out you for a pretender or someone who knows what they're doing. And I can tell you in everybody that I've heard in all statements, everywhere in this issue, no one actually knows what to do. Is an emotion, and I am agreeable to that position. There is a serious problem with the Ammon Bundy, Harney County thing is developing. But we are so ignorant as a populace. We don't understand the dynamic against us. That we are doing, again, we're crickets against the problem. And yet the problem's right there. It's discernible, identifiable, and defeatable. All it takes is people being willful to do principled things, not really compromise, and move forward on the law that allows it. And the law that allows it, again, is a passive constraint on excessive actions of any official. First line defense is in the administrative run-up to whatever they do in plans, projects, demonstrations. The other is the criminal aspect that I've identified for you, that when someone comes in a color of authority to adjust and take your rights without warrant, or hands those rights or property or interest to someone else that doesn't have a right to accept them, that's a felony in the first instance by commission. The failure to do the right thing is a felony of omission in the same law. And so what I'm looking at is a bunch of felonies, and it sounds like a broken record, but this is what's going on in Harney County. Nobody is innocent here, and they want to blame this guy, Ammon Bundy, who really, I think this is really, I don't know if anybody knows what's going on over there. This is a bunch of sagebrush. It's high desert. This is Ammon and the chipmunks over there, folks. I mean, there's just nothing going on. It's not a standoff. Unless it's some really pissed off chipmunks, there's no standoff going over there. And so I wanted to point out this, there's some characters coming into play. They're calling themselves to be buffers. They're calling themselves to be the action part of the county. The people that need to speak are quiet because they know there's repercussions. They're actually not being so vocal. That's why you're not hearing from them. The people that are vocal are, a lot of which are out-of-staters. The people also coming to bear to protect the system are also wanting to keep the status quo, which has gotten us here. Let's see how. Then we also had a passionate discussion from who was it? Walden, Congressman Walden. He came up with this passionate thing about on the congressional floor about what's going on over there. In fact, and I wasn't even talking about much of this, but again, it's so funny at one level to me. And you wonder how much the psyche is being played by this broadcast. Because this statement, and I know this might be a generic statement, but you don't understand the subtleties that are going on in people's language from 10 years ago, 5 years ago till now that I have been witness to. That Oregon militants, Walden, takes BLM to Woodshed. Here's the transcript, and you can read it. I'll give you the link. But he goes through in a passionate plea. Starts out in a 5-minute conversation. He ends up being like 20-something minutes long. And he's frustrated. But we've talked with Walden's office. I've got people over there that talk with him for a long number of years. And you're going to listen, if you go listen to that thing, you're going to hear our work. Although we don't get named, I'll just tell you, just go look at the record and see that it happened. The Jefferson Mining District's coordination officer in our work put into Wallowa County plan, the travel management plan, the law. The forest access for all people had numbers. And they went to that meeting and showed the numbers of people that were going to be resistant as they were being supported by our presentation of the law and before the county commissioners to show their police power obligation to enforce the laws of the state regarding highways and trails. That Wallowa Travel Management Plan failed miserably before the Forest Service. That was where we found out Congressman Walden wasn't quite the leader that he was supposed to be, because once we collapsed that, because we showed that the Forest Service was violating many laws to try and close highways in anywhere, actually. That the whole of the people pressure put on that, collapsed that plan, and now Walden, who was somewhat supportive of it, came like he had been leading the parade in the wrong direction all of a sudden. He found himself going in the wrong direction. He came running through and declared himself the white knight that had been advocating this the whole time. And I said, that's okay. We're not here for notoriety. We're here to fix a problem. But what came out of that was a scathing letter almost, I think it came out of embarrassment to show that he had a handle on it. A scathing letter denouncing the Forest Service plans altogether. And we've used this letter now repeatedly to show the intent and by how and over what subject matter is affected by the Forest Service, what they do to fail to meet the law when they're making these plans. The same type of plans that created that refuge, but in a different style basis. They call it consensus. What based that refuge, started that refuge. And what that was, and you'll hear Congressman Walden speak, and this is where if you know what you're listening for, you can see where the crime happens. He was the author of the creation of this refuge, which was what, when you listen to it? It was the extortion of ranchers and property owners' rights for the institution of an amenity, a refuge, that was actually created originally by the man's involvement with the land that was just a high desert. In other words, the science shows that sage grouse follows man around because of the water he provides, where there was not water before, where the animals tramp down the grass because they need a certain type of environment. It's created by the cows, which are mowing down all the fuel that normally causes devastating fires. The real science shows contrary to what they propagate. And so this refuge creation was a compromise of property owners' rights vested from a long, long time ago. They want to diminish this, like the Bundy thing, they want to diminish this property of the right of going on the public land for grazing. This land, the property disposal is made for use, for productive use, production of the raw materials. And the law is that it's supposed to be improving and sustained yield use. Nothing like conservation like we see today. That the bill that, we told him this too, not on this bill, but as we were seeing what he was doing, we told Congressman Walden, back-channeled through any letter, you can write this too. We said, what you're doing here is you're advancing a crime because you're advancing the extortion against someone's rights and property, and you don't have title to that. In fact, you're the grantor's agent here. You can't do this. Well, they can because they're criminals. But what he professed is the model act in this little dialogue he has, and I'm glad to hear it. It puts this issue on this national stage, but it puts it on the national stage in the wrong context. So I'm here to kind of explain a little bit of the backhand of this and see what we can do to understand, and maybe hopefully some of you get involved to be part of the correction. That he says this is model legislation for this refuge, and it was acknowledged that, and he expounds how he was the author of it, and the agencies twist everything, all of which was the truth. The latent lie was that type of legislation based on consensus, where you allow third parties in to extort from you, is the model legislation for how you thieve from people. It was compromises from people that didn't have to compromise. This is what consensus-based things do. This is the foreign agenda undermining your established constitutional form of government and how things are supposed to work. It's also the thing that erases your memory from your public officials of what their duty is. And then those offices get infiltrated as well with people conducive to this non-constitutional attack. That what you're seeing in Harney is the effect of an illegal cause. And no one's focusing on the cause, and that's the deal. So you focus on Ammon and the chipmunks, and you're not going to focus on the cause, which sits in the county, it sits in that sheriff, it sits in the state, it sits in the federal government, as we sued to enjoin in 2013. This is it, folks. This is why I know what I'm looking at. This is the lawsuit that the state, the Bar Association, the political parties, the people, the legislators, the legislative council, all of which we sued, would not respond to. And to show you how unethical this so-called Brown her new ethics action is, we've just sent a letter, and I told you we were in enforcement. It takes a long time to work this through, and we're in a very delicate position. I've told you about the FBI coming after us when we pointed out the Secretary of Interior committing felony and treason, making war against the laws of the United States, and the DOJ sent out their thug, the organized crime syndicate sent out their Guido to threaten us. This is what we're facing from the state as well. And we sent a letter to enforce the judgment to ask her why, if you're so ethical, you presented this ethical production before the state, you're going to do things better. We're relying on that and this acceptance and agreement to this injunction to enforce the laws of the state and the laws that were created by this injunction, and really only your obligation and duty. Will you give us assurances that happened? Crickets, folks. So we're on them, and they still don't want to answer. And so now we have a delicate problem developing in this country. It's not the Ammon and the chipmunks. It's not the chipmunk wars in Harney County. It's that there's people inside your system that are either ignorant and or players that are running down your system in a concerted method, in concert. It's conspiracy. We've identified all of this. That is the cause that I want you to focus on, that Walden agrees that he's in agreement with. We even got to another guy, Congressman Blumenauer, I think, or somebody. I don't know these guys. I just know their names, and I listen to what they say. He admitted it was the stakeholders that created the refuge. He admitted he agreed with it. That guy is an accessory to felony, if nothing else. And he's one of your representatives, so-called. I have a whole different look at these people, folks. It's immediately they're committing crimes when they bring up certain subject matters. This is why it sounds to me, I can't even hear much more discussion past that. And this is where I don't have that much tact when I hear someone wasting my time, whether it be by ignorance or by plan. I want to shut down the bad information. I don't even want it to get out that you're seeing happening in Harney County. And so a lot of ignorance, I'll just give it the honest, try to be non-judgmental as to the imposition, although I don't like who I see now involved. Ken Ivory's people are involved in some regard, or not, at least people that are agreeable to his idea, which is what's the solution big enough? But Ken Ivory's got 5 big mistakes, and I've talked about it with him when his traveling roadshow tried to come to give the states the power over these lands. He had readily admitted those were the problems. He also readily admitted what the lawyers don't know. Why the state of Utah was going to appropriate $2 million to train the attorneys on this land disposal law. They don't understand. He admitted it. He's an attorney. He's also a representative. And he's supposed to have the knowledge of how putting the plan big enough, the solution big enough. And it has 5 major holes in it. They are the chameleon because by the time they got to another county a few months later, they tried to patch the holes. And what they did, and this is how you have to watch them, what they did is they pulled out the markers for anybody who knew where the holes were. And they translated them to a different time so they were harder to see. But this is where you know when you know, folks. This is not opinion. When we saw them, as soon as I heard the discussion, I asked the 5 points. I said, were they still there? No. I said, did he talk about this then and this then and that? And yes. I said, so I could predict where he would go in order to talk about the subject matter, but hide the fact of the problem they have. Anyway, they are the chameleon. That shows me they're a problem. This is one of the voices in the Committee of Safety. He's one of the attorneys that are involved with the Ammon condition. All the players are wrong here, folks, whether Ammon knows that or not. There is some strong people in that town that need the knowledge. Why I rely so much on people to listen to what I'm saying, synthesize it, and put it into play. Where I can't talk to people, where I anger and piss people off because I'm kind of straightforward that way. Someone comes to me, says that they're a know-it-all and they're going to tell us what to do. That don't fly very fast, especially when I realize, no, that's only for you, not for us. And then disrespecting the fact that a bunch of us have been working on this for within 10 and shorter years, specific to this same subject matter. And you'll start finding these pretenders out. These are the same pretenders that showed up in Harney County. So it just blows me away how these people get there so quickly. The people in Harney County are in trouble. But it's defeatable. It's defeatable with the black and white, as I keep telling you about. So I'm only talking about this. Why? I want us to stop answering and responding incorrectly. Stop being the cricket. Stop agreeing to being gullible to this illusion of authority. The color of the authority to come in and be able to be a protector is a felony. Now, it might be a soft felony, but because what about the Good Samaritan? The point is that they're doing it in earnest to gain a control. And when I hear people talking about subject matter that they use all the wrong words, and all the wrong words they use are the triggers which cause the subjection if you act on them. And those words are always consistent. I know I'm dealing with someone that's not doing it by accident, folks. This is what it's so important for, as I've been talking behind the woodshed all this time. I'm really down the road farther than I wanted to do on this. But it's become such an important thing. Let me just throw something else out. All these attorneys, all these people are spouting off, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. The limit on the federal jurisdiction. And everyone misses the little word ceded inside that, to understand that there's a power in the state over the cession of lands wherever the state wanted to do the cession. That Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 is irrelevant, absolutely useless, against the subject matter of land disposal in the western states. And yet that's what everyone's spouting off, is all the patriots, everyone, that's what they're spouting off. It's irrelevant. And every once in a while, the right words pop out, but they get lost. They come out, but no one expounds, no one expands on it. And that's just to keep people like myself thinking, oh, well, it must be happening, but it's not. Because they go to things that are not working, and they agree. If you listen very carefully, they don't know what's going on. They don't understand it. And to me, I feel I have the answer. Now, that said, even I can fall short. I'm not going to say it was a mistake, because I got a lot going on in my head, and a lot of stuff goes on, but I keep working on this stuff somehow. And it was asked of me later, what can I do, in one of the chat rooms? What can someone who's private to this do? And I told you that you have some things you might try, but they're not really fortified. They're not really authorized in law. I fell short on you for that. So let me explain what happened. What came to me. I was talking to someone else on a different issue, and this answer came out for the thing I misspoke last week about what you could do. It didn't come to my mind. It came to my mind later when I was talking about something else. This is the way this dynamic works, and so I have to keep track of where I'm at. I wanted to tell you about it. I forgot completely to tell you as a private, I don't know, call you, well, you would be a party at the filing of the petition, who sees an unlawful restraint. You have a remedy as a witness to an unlawful restraint of liberty to take action. Now, I said it that way particularly. That's the way the law says. What am I talking about, folks? I just want to give you leading your mind a little bit without always having the answer. I want you to exercise your own knowledge. When there's unlawful, or you believe, you have probable cause to believe there's an unlawful restraint of liberty, what's our remedy in law? I hope a lot of you said habeas corpus, whether you've done one or not. I've talked to you about these before. I was a little surprised after I come up with it 3 or 4 days later, well, I hadn't come up with it. Do you know that where you can articulate how the Hammonds were unlawfully restrained of their liberty right now, you can file a habeas corpus, and you have to go look at this. It's a study you have to make. There's 3 or 4 different styles that you need to look at. Some are in state and some are at federal. So what you want to do probably, and I have to say probably, because you have to go look at which one you're going to do and what your basis is. You should write maybe the federal habeas corpus. In the meantime, you should petition, and you're going to find out the legality. You're going to find out how truthful and honorable your state is by doing this as well. You're going to petition the state to do the state habeas original jurisdiction in the Supreme Court, to get their property possessor out, because their obligation and duty under the primary document imposing that between the parties is what allows them standing to go do the Supreme Court directly, to have that system shut down and release that man on the failure of the jurisdiction, the invalidity of the jurisdiction, as I was talking to you last time, which I think is the right answer. I didn't know of a remedy to you and me. I did know, but I forgot to say it. That if you condition this statement around the unlawful restraint about an invalidity of the jurisdiction, as I stated last week, whether or not the corrupt system will allow it, you have it in the public record to push forward. And this is not an ongoing thing, folks. These habeas work within 2 to 14 days. And the habeas says, okay, official, you have the body. How do you have lawful warrant to have the body in face of the challenge that your authority was invalid? So you do the federal, and then you petition your government, your attorney general, to do the state's power, because you want to hit from 2 different spots. This is how you do it. You hit them. This is why it takes so much work, and this is why I always like having a few people that know what they're doing. You hit them from all these areas. The last habeas I did, I told you about. It never made it through the system. And this is where, again, by experience, you learn the little tricks the government has to not let this stuff out. Within 24 hours, wasn't even that, within 12 hours of my filing of a habeas petition in a state court to release a friend of mine who was wrongfully jailed by the sheriff. My friend was standing on the street at 2 a.m. in the morning. Always inconvenient for you, it doesn't matter. But he was out of that jail. Why? Because they didn't want to have to answer that habeas. As soon as they don't have the body, your petition's moot. Moot, M-O-O-T, not mute, like I can't hear, or I can't speak, excuse me. Moot, it's of no consequence. M-O-O-T. They throw him out in the street just by the filing. That's not going to happen in the Hammonds case. The point is, that's how fast this can cause a problem for them. And so I wanted to clarify that up. And a little bit I'm disappointed. I know maybe you don't want to tell me stuff, but I'm markonthebeastyahoo.com. No one corrected me either. So we still got a little bit to work with amongst ourselves. I say, when I make a mistake, let's get it fixed. Because in this case, men, I do believe this is absolutely by the jurisdictional condition at all, the invalidity of the jurisdiction, the court, and the territory, which doesn't exist over where they were, and there's a lot of other things, but I'm going to keep it limited to that. These innocent men are unjustly being restrained. We have the opportunity to make a record of that. This is not done lightly, and you have to do this correctly. But all the information is right in the statutes to expose this. You can reference Jefferson Mining District et al. Versus Kitzhaber et al. And then the defaults on the quo warrantos to identify how and why, where there's proof a senior judge cannot issue. It does not have warrant in law or within the context of the established court or in the Article 3 capacity or over the territory. See, I'm not talking opinion, folks. If I had any doubt before when I made that paperwork up, from my research before, it was vanquished. Any doubt was vanquished when the judge could not respond. And more to the point, the clerk couldn't either. So, there's a whole lot of different answers that could be coming out. I'm a little concerned. We're trying to get this to go in the right direction ourselves. We don't have enough people mobilized to do what you see in front of the news and all that. We just don't have it. I'm really disappointed we don't, because we have the power, folks. We have the law. Whether or not it's recognized, if it's not recognized, we can call felony. We can call worse. Then the rubber starts to meet the road. Is your government going to explain to you it's an oppressor? It's organized criminals? Or is it just going to do the law? Remember, that's the whole important point. We were a nation of laws, not rule, O law. We were a nation of laws. They speak, if you can say they speak for themselves, and every statute I've found, when you find it, says that. They're clearly discernible and understandable on their face by everyone. You don't need jurisdictions and judges and courts. It's only the real hard extensions of that are to be put before the courts. So, if you listen carefully, all the political parties, representatives, are telling you they agree to the felony against producers. This was never to come to here. And what you're seeing is Ammon involved, regardless of what you believe about it. And I told you I would have gone a little bit differently. I would have gone and made a record of the invalidity of the jurisdictions of all the paperwork and the FBI and whoever else was going to come against me in my action, to show I could present to those people that think they have the law. You don't have anything. You're coming as a felon yourself, like we did to the FBI agent. And then you tack 2 more felonies onto them. Does it matter if you have no accountability? Well, maybe not, but there's something in our minds that really does work, and it is a conscience. Not everyone's a psychopath. And a psychopath doesn't want to be found out either. Now, the real scary part is the insane. They just might not care. And that's a whole other problem, but that's pretty readily identified. See, you get it out, folks. We don't hide in the silence of our acceptance. All the people that are silent. The crickets, us as crickets, us not responding right. This silence that I keep telling you is defeating you. It's the consent that's defeating you. It's also you embracing the tyrant, the oppressor. People don't like hearing that. It makes, okay, I got nothing to do. Well, it doesn't matter. Any excuse to allow the tyrant to continue agrees with the tyrant's position, and the future we want is the future you're going to be living under. Not your future. I said we. I meant the guy who's imposing it, the girl that's imposing it, not you, because you're going to act like a cricket. I'm trying to give you all these things that are there for us to really grab a hold of this and expose everyone. The reason why we got that letter from Congressman Walden over the Wallowa-Whitman travel management plan, which they have not been able to get a plan out since we got engaged with that. Since people now inject the law into the process, there has not, listen, look, there hasn't been any travel management plans anywhere. That's all it takes, folks. The problem is, it doesn't stop the problem and the plunder, and that's why we need the mass of people working in different areas. That Wallowa-Whitman was shut down. We embarrassed the system so bad, Congressman Walden had to save face. Taking credit as he did was fine. The letter we got explains what they affect that we could hand then to the county and say, this is your opportunity and your obligation and duty. It's the same obligation and duty under police powers that the county should take, that a committee of safety is attempting to subvert and doing it incorrectly, even if they did have authority. They may make a comic strip, a cartoon out of Ammon and the Chipmunks. I don't know. They may even make a rock group out of Ammon and the Chipmunks when this is all over. But my interest is that people don't get run down and oppressed. And I see I see all the players in place to cover this thing back up, whether or not Ammon understands that, or whether or not Ammon would agree with me. Again, I have a ton of people that do not like me, simply because I say, wait a minute, you don't understand the subject matter that you're telling everybody to act under. That's going to get people hurt. I'm not here to watch that. And I can help, but no one wants my help either, which is telling, folks. I'll tell you, I had to go through that, I guess. I had to see there are pretenders. It had to slap me hard and say, okay, there's a very limited amount of good people that will work, actually. That's a reality. You have to understand that. So what happened over this last week? Also, Ammon meets the local sheriff. The sheriff finally becomes a man enough to go meet with the guy that really hasn't done anything. He has the right of the First Amendment right of protest. He has the First Amendment right to petition government. He has the First Amendment right to associate, folks. He has the right to do it on public land. He has the right to carry a gun. Where's the crime? He's using property that was vacant when he showed up with the doors open, we're told. The law says the land is supposed to be used to the utmost. He's actually fulfilling the law. And we hear a bunch of noise about the other side. I just gave you a list of things of how this guy's not a criminal. I just gave you a list of things that the sheriff shouldn't be out there but shake his hand and say, hey, you really aren't the criminal, but okay, so what can I do? Where did I fall short? The sheriff has played here, folks. He looks to me like a little kid. But he finally goes out and meets Ammon Bundy. They agree to disagree, as you would expect. Ammon Bundy says that the petition that they put out about the problems that these people have, the ranchers and everybody else, and the miners, and the forest, and the harvest, and the failure, and the imposition of the refuge alone, was not addressed. And that's what he wants addressed. He wants action taken pursuant to the law. They're kind of going on the wrong law in my estimation. I don't care what happens here as long as they start to go down that track. Maybe later I'll get my input through somebody else, as I normally get it. The information I have to offer is usually given by someone else who doesn't rub people so quickly the wrong way, and not that I intend to. I don't walk in to try and I'm looking for other people to help, but when they become a hindrance, or they become an obstruction, or they become a diktat in their own sense, I have to shut that down so people don't believe it's real. And I try to do it as diplomatically as possible. But that rubs people the wrong way, and they don't want to. When you're found out, you're supposed to be carrying around this ego, arrogance that I'm the one who has the answers, and to come against someone like myself. I'm not the only one, but for myself, in my experience. That doesn't go over so well, and to tell you the truth, it surprises me. It catches me by surprise, because I'm simply listening, and then I find there's a problem, and I simply explain it, and that was enough. It's really more of a I'm just innocent to the belief. I think people are coming to help, and really, there's more pretenders than there are genuine people of integrity. And that's what we have to bring back. We have to bring principle and integrity back to the process. Don't make any excuses. Congressman Walden was seen by me as being a problem a long time ago. It's what you all mostly in the politics call rhinos, which I didn't understand so much before. But it's the same type of guy. Remember, we sued both political parties. There's nobody in the political establishment that's not a part of the plunder. That he even thought that model legislation of property owners being extorted out of their property was a model legislation to be modeled for everybody across the country should explain to you the scope of the problem we face. That I'm telling you is answered right in the law. If we would just follow the laws. I asked the local sheriff and the commissioner, what's the solution they have? We don't know what to do with this. And I said, well, would you mind if I offered something? Well, sure. How about if we just enforce the law and make sure part of the enforcement of the law is that accountability part? How about if we start causing accountability to these people? There's no immunities if we're equal under the law. Why is there inequality that federal agencies or state agents or employees or contractors are not prosecuted to the felonies they're causing? I'm asking you, if you want a solution, how about if we just enforce the law, and when we finish doing that, when accountability speaks, then we'll see what we have left to do. How about if we do that? Do you know they won't do it? No, I thought the statement was pretty rational. I thought it was non-insane. I thought it was relevant to law and how we're supposed to lead our lives. Not rule o' law. Again, this is talking before the Bar Association gets it. But see, they go off and they go talk to a Bar Association member. And in this case, one we thought might be helpful, which, take it with a grain of salt, we do, really, I think the spots are the whitewash is slowly washing off, and he's disappointingly and sadly the guy that we were hoping he wasn't. That they will not, this government that you're involved in, that you want to turn your face away from, or that you don't know what it's doing because it does, even their color that you despise is still colorable enough to say it's an authority. They have got you over a barrel. They won't enforce the law. In fact, it's coming out now. I don't do all this. I have to rely on other people. See, everybody has their part to expose to me this sheriff is really not a good dude. I mean, I had my own reasons why I didn't like what he was doing. His words told me who he was. But it's worse than that. And people are finding this out. And so eventually we're going to work all this together. So this is what I say. We got to step out. We got to be that witness to whatever's wrong going on, and whether or not we directly take action, find the wrong that needs to be right, we at least find those that find that it's a problem that are trying to take action that might need our help. There's a place for all of us. So it was very good that the sheriff over there met with Ammon, men meeting men, women, anybody. You meet together with people. I think that you can't help but have an interference pattern of your energy at all. It has to happen. I hope that de-escalates the tensions. I hope they realize they're really outside. They're 30 miles away from the town that's got all the gripes. We're finding out now the FBI closed the schools in order to take over the schools for their own meeting places. It wasn't the Bundys and people out there at all. And how could it? They're 30 miles away in the middle of nowhere. And it's not an easy trek, apparently. So, the PSYOP is on all functions. We have to understand that. Articles will come through. As much as I don't like Ken Ivory's presentation, and it's not valid, he's got a website. He talked destruction of the West. Who's to blame? And so we get to the point where we start to meet. We can see, if we look at this, all of us, no matter what our understanding, whatever our opinions, whatever we believe the law is, we can start focusing on who is to blame. And if we have a blame, and I don't mean that in just the trite way, there's a blame to be had, and I look at it more as an act incongruent with the law, or the rule to implement the law. We need to fix that. And we can't make excuses about that, especially when you have things, millions and millions of acres under national forest land at risk of fires, and then we find out by their maps that it's planned that they will let these places outgrow, excessively grow, to become acts of God that they'll call, so that when fire goes through, they're unstoppable. That the counties haven't stepped up to stop that. It's a violation. They're supposed to protect against depredation by fire. It's right in the code. But that the counties don't step up to stop that, it astonishes me. And that the people don't then look at their county government and say, "What are you not? Why aren't you protecting us?" It then becomes the effect that you see Ammon Bundy speaking to, even though he's out of state. And let me talk a little bit about that. The miners don't have to be from a state in order to have the right to go into Oregon on public land to go prospect. So let's quench any idea that these people are out-of-staters. Remember, if you look very carefully at the Bundy Ranch down in Nevada, there were shafts that were bordered by big beams to keep the cows out. They were mining shafts for copper. So there's a coexistence between uses of the land as well at times. That this is what we're talking about, the use of that land. That the American Lands Council has identified for us, if we didn't know before, where and who's saying what and where the problems are. Back in 2003, Chief Dale Bosworth of the United States Forest Service was explaining some of this. We have some 73 million acres of national forest lands at risk from wildfires that could compromise human safety and ecosystem integrity. Now, he used ecosystem. He didn't use environment. But let's go on. It's not my statement. It's his. Ecosystem integrity. I'm telling you right there is, you're seeing the changeover in what they were going to focus on. But at any rate, ecosystem integrity. The situation is simply not sustainable. Not socially, not economically, not ecologically. That's sustainable development back in 2003, but he's identifying that this plan that they do is not even within the plan, the agenda. And guess what? He makes the same list of wrongs that are similar, very, very close, that Congressman Walden filleted the Forest Service in Willow-Whitman after we shut down the TMP. That's of record, folks. I guess I forgot to say that. This is not just me spouting, oh, look how great. We didn't get named in his statement. I'm telling you, you go to Willow-Whitman, you look at the public record, Jefferson Mining District was there. You go to the county record, Jefferson Mining District Coordinating Officer, another miner who took it on himself, who has knowledge. He's also very capable to understand these things, trained to do so. He made a presentation to the county. This is all of record. It's an example of how you stop what's going on to the ranchers that Bundy is talking about. See, to me, it's not about Ammon. It's not about the ranchers. It's about they are the effect of this cause that needs to be stopped. And again, Ron talks about it on Game On. It's the same thing. It's global. This thing, folks. It just comes at us in all these different ways. But they knew back in 2030 that they were using fires. These wildland fires, the way they manage, doesn't fulfill the agenda itself. What I noticed it did is it did interfere with the police powers, which the county should be able to readily stand up on its own. It doesn't need a committee of safety if it's running right. That it needs a committee of safety shows you the system over there and anywhere is not running right. And this is the gripe of the so-called patriots. But the so-called patriots and others don't understand there's laws that already should be in place that ought to have been recognized, the failure of which is a crime. The failure to recognize in the agencies and governments is a crime or fiduciary breach. This is not a hard discussion. And so this article you'll get in the blogcast will give you evidence of how they do this if you're interested. I can only bring up things that I hope someone would be helpful with, find interesting. You can be anywhere in the nation and find this interesting. You don't have to go there to be an intermediary between someone like myself and someone who doesn't want to listen to me. But you have your own way of communications. That's how I work with a lot of people that do that. I live vicariously through those that have better talents than me. What they don't have is what I can provide. We all have our place in this. So one thing they do bring up in this ALC is Congresswoman Helen Chenoweth Hage. if you wanted to understand a little bit about this, and I ask you to because it underpins all property everywhere. This is not just about public lands, because ultimately those lands are to be disposed, not to aesthetics like a refuge, but to productive uses. And once they're done, those people are not supposed to be interfered with like they are. And when I look at it, I see a bunch of unlawful interference from the standpoint of validity to interfere. It doesn't matter that they're a government agent interfering with vested property rights. Those are not even under the FLIPMA, the Federal Land Policy Management Act. Those are excluded, yet the attorneys want to bring it in. The counties want to bring it in. The agencies want to bring it in. They're excluded right in the first section. I'm talking about those savings clauses. They're in the black and white. When people properly understand, you could not, and this is the other thing, when someone says they don't know, I agree, they don't know. They shouldn't be in a position of decision. Because the answer's there in the black and white. I've found it. No one led me, folks. I was led by the passion to figure this thing. Where did America go? Boy, that's been a long 30-year journey. It's really taken me through some turns. I truly have a better appreciation of what this thing called the United States of America was supposed to do. And because I can look back and re-grab the memory that we should have never lost about it, I'm able to see exactly where we are falling short and where we can stop falling short. We can crawl ourselves out of the stinking abyss. This Chenoweth Hage was a congresswoman. You get on the Jefferson Mining District website and look for the congressional record of 2000. If you want to understand about the lack of power in the government and this concept called paramateria is all together. It just means all together. You have to take these land disposal laws all together. You can't do what Ken Ivory does. You can't do what all these other so-called constitutional attorneys do. You can't do what a lot of the people that are in the truth or alternative media, like a faux alternative media is what this stuff is, folks. All the people that claim to know, the pretenders that are on the ground, none of them have it. None of them understand what this is going on. And all you have to do is read that congressional record that we have on the website to start to get a glimpse of exactly how it works. That the federal government, in the capacity that it is not the sovereign where it's at. And if you don't understand that distinction, you've got to go read that document and really slowly read it and absorb what happens. Because once you start understanding how the paramateria aspect plays on the law, and it can't be defeated, if it is, it's a crime, let's put it that way. Whether or not you can get an accountability. You at least are the witness to the crime that if we stop those things, life becomes more peaceful. Why do I say that? Because the law of this land disposal was to bring peace. It's that simple. It's what the sheriff is supposed to keep. The peace, the land use, the lack of violent interaction between landowners. It was never supposed to have the government to be attacking or allow third parties to attack landowners. But we lost the memory, folks. I've had an insight about what that is, and the best of my ability, I'm finding all the places I can to show that memory does exist still. It's to be found and captured. And so part of me is I don't want to see anybody hurt here. I think the meeting of men here, and the men and women, in this case the sheriff and Bundy, is important. I think even the people that I see as pretenders, intermediators, intercessors that really shouldn't have to be, that are, the meeting of all those people together and the communication lines being built, that is an important thing. So those people are not pretending at that level. But the cause that impels them to be there is completely wrong on almost every footing. And I'll say it one more time. Coordination properly done. Not as influenced by the attorneys, not as influenced by people that don't know the distinctions that are in the statuses. I've talked about them before, and I'm not going to say them because I'm not going to give anybody right now the fuel to be the chameleon to make someone else think they know what's going on, because they don't. I haven't found anybody yet that knows this stuff better than I or the people I work with do work with this. It's a really interesting perspective. All we want is for people to do the thing that's supposed to be done. We want to see this be done that way, to see how it washes out and see whether or not the law satisfies us. Right now, everybody's avoiding the law, misinterpreting the law. You get on Jefferson Mining District, you'll see how even miners themselves are cutting their own throat by doing the wrong thing. And Jefferson Mining District has come up to explain that in its website. You can understand this whole process of what's destroying this country. At every place, they tell us it's multidimensional, folks. It is. You have to be at all the dimensions. Now, you may not be able to cover all the dimensions. But we can cover a whole lot more getting at the core of the cause than we can stomping out some just set forest fire somewhere. How about if we go after the arson? And we don't let the excuse get away that, they can burn these people out. No, they can't. That's a felony at the first instance under state law. Where's your local government? Well, it's complicit. So now you got to rout those people who are wrongly using the offices. That's what we did. Now, everyone wants to know, what's the effect? Are these people still in place? Yeah, they're delicate. Criminals are very difficult to get out when their organized gang protects them. I hope you can appreciate the dynamic that we're all facing. And for those of us that are right on the cusp of moving something forward and getting vilified for it, how much more detrimental it is that we don't have the support, and how much more delicate and I might say dangerous it is to proceed. But we must. I don't know if I don't have fear, but I've lost a whole lot against these people, because I've told you before, where I can find out these people are using their badge to be a criminal, that's all I needed. I don't know what else to do now. You either stand back and you let that criminal go and kill other people, hurt other people, take their stuff, plunder and rout people out, destroy other people, or you try to work to stop them. I really don't know what the middle line is there. MarkOnTheBeast@yahoo.com. Have you got a middle line to that? It's us engaging. Us engaging. 2000 congressional record. Very valuable information to understand how this land law goes. It'll explain to you how the Bundys, how these guys there, how the people, the ranchers, are all being destroyed without right. And I mean, not destroyed because there would be a right. What I'm saying is that there's no inherent power in the government or its officials to do what you see that caused Ammon to do what he did. Notwithstanding, I really can't find, unless it's the chipmunk rights that you're enforcing and they're pissed off here and it's the chipmunk wars over there, there is nothing in our law that actually says that there's anything actually unlawful going on. In fact, I can argue it actually fulfills the mandate of the Forest Service to improving use of those lands, because the Forest Service wasn't using them at the time. That's a pretty desolate place. So, these things that we're told, the psyop that goes out, all the wrong information, I see it in the Committee of Safety. I don't want to detract of what they could do, but what they're going to end up being, if they're honest, is they're going to be the collector of the law and the suggester of the law to the real power that they are claiming from 400 years ago, which sits in the county today. And you ask your commissioners, why are you not doing your obligations and duty under the law? And you're going to find that most likely, and for the most part this is what we find, each seat of an office has been subject to and agreeable to this agenda. You have to find it out and eventually route it out. And there's a way. There's a way. And it's simply as knowing the law more than these pretenders that are called attorneys, and you out them at every turn. They try to take the county power off the rails and hand it to the feds. It's very simple. It takes a while. Don't think there's no silver bullets here. You have dynamics and people working with each other and people hating each other and people thinking they're getting away with stuff. There's all kinds of things. And yeah, it's tedious, and yeah, I don't like it. But we're in a war. You either assume the war, assume to be the position of helping the tyrant, or you have to fight that war. And at every point, there's nothing that you're doing that's really, what should I say, causing you to be actually threatened. There's nothing that they might threaten you, they might not like you, but there's nothing you're doing that's really threatening to you. And that's why it's also nice to have your own homies with you if you go do that. Because there's a lot of this misinformation. I see it everywhere. I'm getting back to, I don't watch TV, but I see enough of the videos. I'm starting to get back to where I'm screaming at my TV a bit. And that's not real healthy. I've been able to keep my health pretty good because I think I took that out. But there's enough wrong information. That's why I try to get like beyond media. This alternative media stuff, all this nonsense, this truther stuff. All that's irrelevant to the reality I see, to what's hurting us. I don't know how many times you analyze how 9/11 was an inside job or not, whether it was taking down by nukes or alien technology. It's irrelevant. They went and done it, folks. They're willing to do it to you. I don't care now. There's no doubt. And then we were able to find it's in every place there's a government. And it's not just government that's bad. These are the people in government misusing it. This is like a double and triple step down into the stinking abyss. That was one of the other things when the Ammon met the sheriff, and it was reported that the sheriff said he would escort Ammon out of the county, and it was reported that Ammon said, "I don't need an escort." And I reported back, I think he actually said, "I don't need no stinking escort." I don't need no stinking escort. See, just the agreement to that. This is how they do it. And this is what you have to be aware of. And this is the little things I hear here and there make me appreciate people. Whether I agree with them or not is irrelevant. Do they have that insight that they know when to make the right statement? And people do generally. And no different than I would be set against by someone I would innocently expose to be a pretender. Just in my desire to let's get us on the right track quicker. Not to say you're a bad guy or gal, but no, you're okay. You got this a little bit wrong. Let's fix that. No, take great offense to that suggestion. Call me names. I appreciate what's going on around Bundy because the parts of what he's doing that's correct is having the same treatment. And so if you don't understand the underlying authorities and you don't understand properly what's going on, you will be led by the nose. As I tell you, get that ring out of your nose. That's you taking responsibility. And you can help stop a lot of this. Coordination would have went a long way to stop this. Why? Because there's nothing that has been done, even with the legislation that came out of Walden. That was a crime. It was model crime, legislation of crime. It was how to extort from property owners. He takes great pride in it. That's how far we are. Our representatives don't even know they're committing crimes. And I'm giving him some benefit of the doubt like I think he doesn't know, like he didn't know. I think they fully know. Remember, the political parties did not answer our lawsuit either. They know. They know. Notwithstanding that most of them are bar members. I'm beyond question. I'm beyond doubt. I want you to be, folks. This is the way you see through this nonsense, and before we can make any strides about it, we have to identify it. To move on, a lot more time on this. It's been a whole hour talking about this. Partly I'm passionate about it because it's right where we are. On the other hand, I could care less. I mean, at some point, folks, we're going to step up and decide our future, or someone's going to decide it for us. I can't change that. I see a destruction if we continue to let it go the way it's going. My last few years on this play, this blue ball, whatever the heck color you want to call it, green, whatever color it goes to, is going to be to try and advocate what I believe is better. And it appears to me that property protection was way better. And the government was set up to fortify that, not to subvert it. And when we didn't notice it was being subverted, we gave the plunderers license to continue. And so they're doing it by not letting you have knowledge. You do it by not stepping up to go learn correct answers and things, correct information. They gave us the internet, a wonderful thing. I can't get documents without it that I wouldn't take time, a lot of time and a lot of travel to go find, if I could find them, that I can get now. But I'm focused on with purpose and intent. I am not just someone trying to be like a sponge and grab everything that anybody wants to say about the subject matter. I'm kind of moved beyond research and into the experiential part of applying the knowledge. As I tell you, it's not about knowing. You can know a ton of stuff. You have to apply it. At some point, you have to become proficient at applying your knowledge. That's a learning process. But to apply it, we're now beyond research. Yes, I still research. But because my sense, in my observation, my research was not faulty, all I'm going to do is fortify my research. In fact, I'll find things that support even more what I've done, and that's been the case. A self-evident proof, if I can say that. When you start getting on that track, you know you're on it. That's all I can believe. And so, understanding these statuses, the relationships, all these things, is quite a bit of a knowledge, but you know it's so simple once you get it. You place everybody in their proper category, and you find out who has the real authority and when. And you find out that is where there's a being free in the context of your property and rights. You have a freedom to quickly articulate, if I can say, reframe a plunderer's framework that he's constructing around you, and you say, no, you can't build that around me because my frame is this way, and you don't have an authority to adjust that. And to do so is a fiduciary breach. Actually, a higher breach than a crime. In other words, those are people that took promises to do certain things, and on their promise, you accepted, and then they breached. That's the lowest of the low. That's why our word was our bond. These are very important concepts. Without this, what we call trust, and the ability to establish confidence, we have no currency between us. That word in a lot of meanings, the currency, the now, we have no way to continue unless we can do that. And so again, I'm not so much the anarchist, because of complete chaos, you aren't bound. And I've heard lots of ways of redefining anarchy to mean other things. It's not true. There has to be an organized, agreeable structure if you want to bring peace into a world that doesn't look like it wants to be nice and settled and peaceful. And I say that with a great sadness to understand the country that is also attacking its people is the one that's plundering the world, is the United States of America, in league with a bunch of others. It's just apparently not in us. The psychopaths have been now the cream to this putrid liquid. They've risen to the top and they're taking control, and we apparently believe we're helpless against it. And the answer is just as simply as, how about if we just bring accountability and don't make excuses for it? Don't falsely accuse someone. The false witness, folks, remember? You're not supposed to do that. But so the statuses are important. We talked last week about the Real ID Act, and that this talked about a privilege that they were going to bestow upon everybody to civilize you, to enfranchise you into the system before you could travel. Well, it comes out this week. Just want to touch this lightly. Department of Homeland Security giving states 2 more years to meet the Real ID Act that they pounded so hard leading up to last week that they were going to find violations, and you were not going to travel. Showing you the limit of the federal authority, and it takes you and your states, the whole people, your legislature, to make the decision. Not them. And so at the last second, they did an extortion attempt here, and they didn't do it. They should be held accountable for this. Figure out how to do it, folks. And they mention it again. My only key on this whole thing was the first sentence. The Department of Homeland Security is giving states an extra 2 years to comply with federal requirements to issue driving licenses with extreme safety features. So now you see the federal authority is over commerce between the states. Driving licenses are that regulatory federal authority. Do you get it now, folks? Do you get it now? I'm really hoping it's just so simple to see. You go into Title 18, USC Section 31. It defines what a motor vehicle is. It's the conveyance doing commerce. Got to go to sub 10 on that one, but it's okay. Do you hear it? That driving licenses are a federal requirement. It's not a state requirement. It's a state-imposed federal requirement over a conduct or activity, business. They say it right in the first sentence. That they're going to impose, I tell you, it's a privilege card. Without one of these properly done, you're not getting into the federal court. It's an entirely commerce system. If you don't have these IDs, you become the enemy combatant. But they don't have the right to impose it, right, if you're not doing that. Why? For those of, here's going to go, don't get nuts on me though. Why, if you go look at admiralty law, and go look at what a neutral is, under international provisions, and what prize courts are, and booty on the land, you'll start to figure out what more this is going on. And I don't say go in and I've told you this. Do not go in and talk about admiralty law. Just figure out what the remedies are with it. Just use the remedies. And when the judge jumps over to statutory law, you jump over to the remedies of statutory law. And when he runs over to the equity jurisdiction, you jump over in the equity. You transfer these very identical, same remedies in jurisdictions for defense across the hats the judge wants to put on to try and trick you up. It's pretty fun to do that, and you watch it takes about two or three. The third one, he gets it. The judge understands you understand. And I don't mean understand him. I mean you understand there's law and he's in legal. And so, I won't say more. You really have to do the study. It's right there for us to do. These real IDs are federal requirements over driver's license. There's the jurisdictional limitation in commerce between the states as a regulation, not as a club. The answers are right here. So anyway, real ID gone. They're going to postpone it for 2 years. You can make a lot of noise in your state, wherever you are. Whenever you get a chance, you get a few minutes, write a letter, folks, and say this real ID. Well, you can't talk to the agencies. The attorney generals, and they don't want to. You can talk to the governor a little bit, and you ask him, why are you going to spend why are you putting a federal program as a requirement on me and then not allowing me to travel? What's your authority to do that as a state? Aren't you supposed to protect my right to travel? You won't get an answer, but you make a record, see, that they intend to harm you. And eventually enough people see this. This is our problem. People want to put their head in the behind the woodshed bucket of sand. I really got to make that up and send it out. Maybe miniature ones. They're quite heavy if they were regular ones, but I don't know. Maybe the impact won't be the big as you can't stick your pinhead in it. Maybe not. Anyway, right there in the first sentence. Requirements, the federal requirements to issue driver's driving license. This is a federal imposition, definable under federal law. Remember, firearm was defined under federal law. Congress takes it from the states, that definition. They've defined driver's license as a business under Title 18, that's a commerce code, a criminal commerce code. Motor vehicles are used in business. There it is. That's the definition. Will you win? No, because you'll be biting into the occupier's revenue streams. But you make the record. And you might win. I shouldn't say no. I've won. It's few and far between. Then you find out that fight's not the fight. That's the effect. We're after the cause that harms us, folks. So, onward now. Don't go to sleep on the real ID. It's going to get you. They're going to get it. They're going to get it, folks. It's part of the big data thing and part of the federal layer of control that is already, that's been silently over us the whole time that no one challenges. It's why the FBI has the power they have in Harney. People don't understand this. It's the limit that all constitutional shirts go to and stop. How do I know that? I've watched it. How do I know that even more than just watching it? I predicted it in a sheriff. That didn't make me, that didn't even put me, trying to help out that way. Don't do that. You're not prepared for that. And then having him find out that it was, that didn't endear me to him either. I can't win in that regard. There's just no way. I don't know if it's ego or what. It's probably ego, but I don't know. I just know that there's a certain predictive thing. If you look in the black and white, we're been done in, and we want to ignore that. We can't. We can't excuse these people who are committing felonies, and we can't let those that are in office become accessories to those crimes. Because I can identify if they allow that, that's actually a felony. They're giving a third party the right to interfere with you that they don't have, an original party doesn't have a right, that's a felony. And if they omit to do the right thing, that's a felony. This is so simple in some regard. I do sound like the broken record, I know. And I do talk really quickly, so I guess I have to say it over and over because I know it's hard to write as much as I'm saying. I just know that. In fact, that was one of my, well, when I was talking with Stat Miller, he asked me a question and I started to explain it. And he goes, hold on, this is a dialogue. And I said, okay, fine, but I thought you asked me a question. I was going to give you the answer, and I want you to know everything I know. And I'll tell you what I told him there. I want you to know what I know because what I think I know, if we all had what I know and we could start applying it, what we see as the reality would end in a very short while. And then we would start to see where our real problems are. And I truly believe that. It's not because I know it all, but I know we're looking at a core. We're looking at the one pin that holds this whole thing together. And it has a few elements to it, and that's it. And if we're not afraid to go ahead and find the particular angle we need to put those elements on and identify it, and then stick all over them, cause the tar baby to be whatever they touch, these so-called authorita, professes to be your leader, and don't let them up. And enough people start seeing that, and then you're doing it will show more people. I think this thing starts to go away. But if we don't know this stuff, and we go off on tangents, and we start talking about our right to travel and right to drive, we mention all these court cases from bygones ago, it's not going to work. All I have to do is show you by this article that Homeland Security wants requirements for federal requirements on driving license to tell you that's a federal, in your states they're imposing a federal guideline for commerce machines. When they require that same ID to get into a federal court, that court is identified as a commerce entity. Whether you want to call it a corporation or not. It's a corporation as soon as they use money. How do I know that? Do I make this stuff up, folks? Do I go on and on? I know I talk a lot, but no, on this point. Do I talk on and on? Do I give you a list and 5,000 pages of disproof? No, I go to one statute. Title 28 U.S.C. Section 3002. You go read it. Like you go to 28 U.S.C. 3002. When they use money, you got to go to the beginning of that section. When they use money, the United States is considered to be a corporation. Its instrumentalities are considered corporations. It's not necessarily a corporation where they're dealing with land disposal then, is it? Where they demand first right of refusal on Hammonds for money, they might be, aren't they? And then you go read the law and you find out when the BLM acquires land, it does so as a corporation. Do you know this stuff, folks? It warps your mind a bit, but then you get to keep everything in order. I don't get all wild out. Wait a minute, they're taking as a corporation there. They don't have the right to do that. They're a private party in the federal government. What standing did they have as a private party to go do what they did? And then we get to prove that this was a state law matter entirely. There's so many ways to show what's gone wrong with the Harmons. It's just almost impossible with all the noise out there to cut through it and get someone just to settle down and do this very narrow discussion of explaining the wrong, outing these people, whether or not that releases the Hammonds. I'll go back to the habeas. Habeas works, and it depends. I can't remember now. A long time since I've done all these and researched all this. But so fix the thing I'm in error about. I think it was 2 to 14 days. This is like our injunction. These are extraordinary remedies where there's no other thing available. In this case, the unlawful restraint. And your whole challenge is the validity of the various authorities issuing the judgment, and therefore the judgment itself is fraudulent. It's invalid to start with. It's not even fraudulent because it's invalid, but it's fraudulent where it purports to be an authority keeping people in jail. And here's the other point. I'm going to ask you something here. And I found out they did have a jury, where these people where the jury had to have a federal driver's license to get into that court, where this privileged class was overlooking a landed man, what right did that jury have to transfer and convert his appurtenant right to backburn to save his ranch, appurtenant the grant of the right to use the surface? What right did that jury have to dispossess him of that appurtenant right in his grant and hand it over to the government to recharacterize as terrorism? If you say nothing, no right, you've just identified two felonies, folks. In the jury itself. 3, actually, because someone who operates on the highway has no right to oversee a property owner. Have you put this together? I don't think many people do. I'm asking because I want to make a point of that. Do you understand how the whole thing can be shown to be a felony? The jury had no right to do that. The prosecutor had no right to accept the ability to do that. The judge had no right and title to overthrow that. And all of the officials, even the jury as an office, was in fiduciary breach of the disposal of Congress to the Hammonds. Does anybody talk like this? Those of you that get the podcast and take notes and think you might want to try, wade in on a habeas, folks. I'm really kind of disappointed in myself that it didn't come to me, but not to the point that I'm worried about it. I'm telling you now. Bring up a law into a basis that counters their deception. At the minimum, you're making the public record that they're not going to address it. That may not be enough to break the camel's back on this, folks. I don't know. Probably not. But it's another straw on the camel's back. You may be the only one that can put that there, like I may be the only one that can tell you what I just told you. I am not capable to take it to the next point. Someone has to pick that part up. As much as it just angers me and pains me and saddens me that there's 2 men, innocent men, sitting in prison. I don't have more. I'm at my limit and probably beyond, and we just keep pushing. That's why I'm asking. We need help. The stuff is out there to do. I don't know that writing a habeas accurately is going to put you underneath if you're worried and fearful. I don't think it puts you under any direct attack. But your scrutiny will come up, I'll tell you that. If you push it under 18 U.S.C. 4, that this habeas is actually coming by that authority as well as being the habeas, you might actually put up a shield of protection. Why? Because it's saying once you saw this violation, you were obligated to tell a judge or someone of authority there had been a felony going on. This felony of theft by extortion or theft by conversion, accepting the charge by the prosecutor and converting the man's land into a terrorist act. What authority is there to do that? I say none. That's what I say. If that's what you say, I'm asking you to go research quickly how to pull a federal habeas up. And there's 2 different types, and I don't know the numbers, 25, 55, or 54, I don't remember now. Pick the right one. I think the 55 is what you might want, I don't know. And write one up, send it in there on these points I've talked to you about. At least we get to see what they say, folks. What if I'm wrong? You get the official record of why. What if they're wrong and they say you're wrong? You get to out them again. Does it matter? Yes, because then you get to put another stick of straws, another bundle of straws on that camel. All without real threat, actually. And if you do what I do and you go down and you do general delivery, it makes it a lot harder for them to identify you, doesn't it? You're out of the state. You're outlaw. You're out legal. You're actually in law, but you're out legal. Could they find you? Sure. But at least you have buffers. Your whole point is finding that you see a felony going on within the process and you identify how. Those things I talked about last week, coupled with a couple things, and this thing I just told you today about applying to the jury itself, the lack of title to convert the man's property and give it to the prosecutor to charge him as a felony. The right, his appurtenant right, folks. This is the bundle of sticks you get when they hand you a property that they keep talking about. It's the improper way to analyze this, but this is what the court has said. You got a bundle of sticks that comes with your grants, with any sale, with any property sale even, with any property thing that you acquire. One of the bundles of sticks he had is to maintain his holding and maintain it with fire. Protect his land. I've already told you about my story about being confronted by the state with me jumping on a land that let to fire and was going to burn my place up. Remember, the shovel and the weed whacker. Whack and smash, whack and smash, whack and smash. Then they tried to get me for interfering with the fire marshal. That didn't fly, folks, because I have the right to defend my property against conflagration. Everybody does. So, it's the pertinent right. You start phrasing your discussion tightly and more correctly. And if they fail you and it's right what we did, what I suggested is wrong, you learn by that. You then correct it, file another one. Don't go frivolous. You don't need thousands of papers. You just need a few points. Don't bury your points because you want to show them how much you know. That's irrelevant what you know. You show what you know by how concise and directed you show the felony or the fiduciary breach. And I kind of got off a point. Boy, I haven't even run down them tabs at all. Blogcast is going to be a little bit sparse this week. So, Real ID exposes, again, as I told you, I just want to keep pointing this out. This is a federal requirement for driver's license in commerce. That's it. That's what your driver's licenses are. Are you in commerce, folks? Is your argument you even have a right to drive? No, it's not even involved. You don't have a right to drive. This is regulated by commerce. It's regulated in commerce. You're not doing that, so why'd you say you were? Will the plunderers and the revenue enhancers and the state bar give you a right to travel on your road underneath your road law? Probably not, but now you make a record like we did that they don't intend to. Why? Because they've done what, folks? They've embraced and to promote and to advance sustainable development, haven't they? And you're going to be on a dang bicycle if you don't. How's that? Time to step up. Another Fukushima story here, folks. Oh, maybe not. What have I been saying, folks? Fukushima was a cover. They were and then when the EPA stopped monitoring, I said what they're doing is they don't want you to know that your radiation's been in your own land in the United States of America and in lots of places, wherever there's been nuclear technology at all. Well, portions of the land of San Onofre nuclear plant may be contaminated, says the Navy. And what did they just do around there just last year? Talked about, Fukushima radiation had come and hit the West Coast again. And I told you, no, there's a deposit up there that's going off into the ocean, and they're measuring it from there. Here's another source, folks. That's all I want to let you know. Don't want to get too bad into it. Another interesting thing, again, the things that go on that we can't know our lawsuit does. I want to expose to you, you have to watch the silence work. You have to look in what they do. Before everybody was getting protected, our lawsuit goes in and plucks Kitzhaber out of his office. He lawfully got an office and wrongly uses it. When you do that, they can't rely on the state to protect them and use the funds of the state to protect them. Now, Kitzhaber is under investigation yet we're told by the FBI, as well as 120 other people. If you didn't think this is big, and it's worse than that. That came out, this ethical Governor Brown that we have said we want to know, when we want assurances that you're going to enforce the injunction against the state to not interfere with the miners anymore underneath the color of SB 838. At the same time, she comes out, Governor Brown in Oregon rejects Kitzhaber's bid for state help with legal costs. How is she able to know that before they've done the investigation to find he had any potential wrongdoing, folks? I'm going to conjecture. They know about our lawsuit, don't they? We've identified it. They know. Impliedly, they agree. This guy's a criminal in the office. He took the office, just like we said, and he used it for unlawful reasons. He actually commits treason in the office. She comes out without any further notice and says, no, the state's not going to pay your legal costs. I'm going to smile a little bit, folks. Can I prove it? No. Why did it happen? It never happened before. Danger, folks. Will Robinson as well. Constitutional conventions coming up. Remember, I told you it's really the Hegelian dialectic. They want to synthesize this end that they need. Texas governor calls for constitutional convention to wrest power from Obama. I don't really want, just the headlines are enough for me, folks. The way, when you read through this, I'll just tell you, and I'm talking about, this is why it's so important. The core of this has been addressed by us in 2013. It's of public record. Jefferson Mining District versus Kitzhaber, 2013. You'll see the record on the internet, but you won't find the paperwork. They've locked it out. And when we feel comfortable, I suppose, the Assembly will decide to release it when other things don't work. We're not, again, promoting. But it's there for you to see. That when the government does what it's supposed to do, the federal government has no power to rest. The fact that this governor is calling for a constitutional convention, especially out of Texas, is a major warning to you. This is the wrong answer to the wrong problem. And this is them agreeing to do the wrong thing because they've failed to do the right thing. That the government, state governments have the power to throw off the federal control. But does Texas have driver's license, folks? Do they take money to administer these programs from the federal government? Well, that's one clue. It's not the only clue, and that can still be controlled. They can still actually do it without undermining to the constitutional convention level what I don't know that. What Governor Greg Abbott has offered. And I looked at his list, I said, okay, that's fair enough. But why don't they outlaw the bar, which is our main problem? Why don't they insist on certain other things that would put a check on accountability? Why don't they put accountability, proven, addressable, direct, unevadable accountability in government? Why weren't any of those put in there? When you start looking at the list, you know why. That also, the other danger, don't start a constitutional convention. Because once you do, there's no limits to it. I think Patrick Henry actually identifies this. Remember, I smelt a rat. Well, there's no limit. They started under different pretenses to adjust, modify the Articles of Confederation of the 13 states. They ended up with a constitution that no one had asked for. So, danger. Will Robinson as well. High Court. Here's the attorneys coming in to decide your life. And so I have just a little observation, nothing more. No constitutional right to carry a knife, carry a knife in Seattle. Won't read more of the story. You can read it. You need to read it. I don't have time to go through a lot of these things. I thought I could find the case. I thought it was attached. It wasn't, so I decided I'm just going to tell you about this. They're claiming that a kitchen knife is not an arm underneath the Second Amendment for protection as a defense against someone who was stopped by the cops and found to be doing something wrong and used it as a defense to remove the enhancement for having a weapon. And they said, no, wasn't a weapon to use that defense. So I don't understand what the enhancement was. Notwithstanding that, a kitchen knife, apparently they've done this screwing around with this definition. Where in the Constitution does it say that the court shall have the discussion on what infringe is, folks? So this court has no jurisdiction to speak, but they speak anyway. And so it's in the record now that a kitchen knife, is not an arm as anticipated by the Second Amendment, which was not theirs to decide anyway. My question here then is, what right does the TSA have to take my kitchen knife from me? On the other hand, if I have embossed in my kitchen knife a Second Amendment arm, in other words, for someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, wants to start making the Second Amendment Arms Company, and you stamp that in your kitchen knives, does that now change it? To show you how frivolous this discussion is and how lack of authority they have. That they will decide for you what is an arm and arm is not an arm. And you notice the story that you'll read, the story writer uses the term firearm, but the court only uses arm. So watch that as well. That I just wanted to point out, in the state that I told you a big story, and I haven't had a chance to go back, that the Bar Association in Washington State has stepped back because they have to analyze that teeth whitening problem that the Supreme Court said if one of your members is involved with one of these agencies, you have no immunity under state law. You're not covered, like Kitzhaber. You're not covered. Your legal fees will not be paid by the state. This is the state that showed, this is the same bar group that comes in and says a kitchen knife is not an arm. Now, who's supposed to decide that? If I declared that kitchen knife was the only arm I could afford, Whose authority is it in the state of Washington and to tell me it's not, first of all? Secondly, where is that power given in the state to do so? And these things have to be, I say them just to get them out there. I hope someone rests with someone. If this is not the subject matter, use the same logic at other places. We have been decimated in our simple law by the puffing up and bloating of the bar in its attempt to take the laws as they found them and turn them into the future we want. Remember, it's all right there for us. It's not that hard, I guess. Maybe that's part of the problem. I don't absolutely do not mean to say that you don't see it, you're dumb. That's not what I'm saying. But it's so simple for me to see now. It maybe seems that way that I may be saying that to people. I don't allow people to muddle around in the error of their minds. Maybe that's an insult to them. I need to settle back a bit. But, and I know maybe there's a way to communicate that way, but with it's when I'm in a war, literally, we're having to do so much. In a way, I really don't have time. I just want you to know, folks. I just want you to know. Don't take insult to how I describe something. Take the experience and take the fact of what I say. Figure out a way, because it may be a universally anticipated thing in every aspect that you deal with. To question whether or not these lawyers have a right, whether or not in the capacity they've given themselves they have a right, whether they can do what they do, whether they can overpower your will. At least get the questions asked and on the record, and when you start watching them do the fancy pants dance, jump in and dance with them, but when they're doing the fancy pants dance, you want to do the straight and narrow dance. And you want to use that fancy pants dance against them. Every time they jump to the wrong answer, you show them a better answer. You show them it was their obligation to have the better answer. You don't even have to accuse them. You're making a record for other prairie dogs to watch. And if I knew there was prairie dogs in eastern Oregon, that may be the wars we're seeing. It's a chipmunk prairie dog war, because it's not Ammon Bundy sitting on utilizing public land in a facility made by the Forest Service. It just isn't. It's just not. And I'll be looking out for the Ammon and the Chipmunk song here maybe in the future. But the High Court's now decided in Washington, and kitchen knives are not arms. I don't know what authority, folks, at all to even address it. Other things going internationally now. The deceptions, the green shoots I talked about in 2009. I said those things, the green shoots were going to die in the cold of winter. In fact, they just absolutely did that, folks. Here it comes years later. They're tougher down in Australia. They're tougher down in Australia, folks. Watch out. There's tough Aussies. But it took them all this time before now we have news the Aussie green power scheme collapses. They can't shove enough into this, folks. It's the green shoots supporting the supposedly rational response to global climate change and other things. It fails. And the reason why I think is not because the ideas are failures, it's because they're trying to push an agenda, they become failures. And it was found out that people will spend enough to be respectful and go ahead and get the systems and take the tax credit, the subsidy, which I told you would be fine if the government would just wanted to do this, they give it to everybody, it wouldn't matter. Then we get off it. We at least have an alternative to the fossil fuels if they think they can do that. It's don't stop industry. Solar power won't power industry. But it at least will do us fairly well. That if they wanted to do this as a government, they could spend a whole lot less than the trillions they're blowing up over in every other place, give us our solar panels, actually give us an electric car with a system that works so that we have enough power every day, even if we're in clouds, and we have a car that goes far enough to do us some good. Maybe for our commuting, maybe not for our long-distance travel. But the government could do that, not make it a game. But people, they found out, I'll put in for my system, but I don't think I'm going to put in twice and three times for someone else when they're not working for it. And this is, or see the company itself was doing it, take a third of that for just because they're there in the middle. That the Aussie green shoots is failing miserably. So my question then, even if global warming is man-caused and this is failing, what's your answer to solving it? Even if we want to give them credit, we are the heretics that the lunatics claim. What's the alternative? This as an agenda won't work. This as a group of people, a society saying everyone shall have, as well as 2 chickens in every pot shall have electric power on their home. And if possible, tied back into the system for reserve power, as we now get battery technology coming on to be able to absorb all this. Maybe nationalizing the power system too. I don't know how that would be kind of a sketchy one, because you know what happens when government grabs something. But anyway, making people chicken in every pot, I guess it was, and we give them all a solar system and a car by the government for ourselves, because we got no money. It's a promise, remember. Promise ourselves a better future. Don't make it a game. And I think we could start doing something, but it's a game. There's big money behind the fraud. And the green shoots die. Just some news. Another news. Things that you get fed into and you get all excited about. And who wouldn't want to win almost $1 billion? No Powerball jackpot winner. Pot to grow to $1.3 billion. I thought that double entendre was cool. Pot to grow 1.3. I think they're making more money than that now in the industry. In so-called legalizing this stuff. They should have left it alone. But I wanted to point out something. Powerball, jackpot, I never agreed with this lotto stuff. I didn't agree with preying on the poor people because they think they can do it. It's like any gambling. It becomes an addiction as well. I've talked to you a little bit about the game. I also said at one time, the odds, if you had the money, you could literally buy off all the numbers, buy them all, and you could win more money each time they played it. When the pot got to a certain place, periodically, you could actually make money by just buying all the numbers. There's no risk there. Well, then I noticed, I told you at some point, that when I noticed, for as hard it is to do this, when someone did win, and they could make more had they been able to buy all the numbers, there was actually more than one winner. Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. Think about the odds of 4 people getting these same numbers on such great odds to begin with. And I realized the fix was in. So the Powerball that we heard, it's a plunder, folks. You have to get behind what they're doing with this. This is another way they plunder people, not just on the addiction, the preying on poor people, even richer people. I mean, it's a gamble. It's not fair, and they use this thing to actually, in a lot of places, go educate your sons and daughters, right? I mean, they're going to educate them into continuing the style of plunder. This is a method of destruction that they figured out, other revenue lines that they need, which doesn't help anybody. They get lots and lots and lots of response. And so now what do they do? The game is we got all this take on $1 billion. We're going to go to 1.3 next time. We're going to get more people putting money in. But guess what? The story that came in a long time ago, and I'm just now getting to it. When I saw that little fixes in thing, folks, it was a story. Jackpot fixing. Investigation expands to more state lotteries. Should I read that again? Investigation expands to more state lotteries. The allegation read like a movie plot. Lottery industry insider installs an undetectable software program in the computers that pick numbers so he can know them in advance. He enlists accomplices to play those numbers in the collective, collect the jackpots. And then they enrich themselves for years until missteps unravels their high-tech scheme. I don't know how many people heard this. The whole point of this story is letting you know that they're fixable, these things, just like your voting is, like any other thing that's digital. That there's people that have the inside handle of this. That the states are terrified you're going to find out about this weakness. Why? Because they make tons of control money on it. Revenue streams to support them is martial law. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this. Libra Code, read Section 1 right there, and Section 10 right there. They make a ton of revenue control. They control people. That it's a fix. The fix is in like every other market. They caught this guy, they say. But they're terrified that this knowledge gets out. Because what are they worried about? That people would no longer trust the image they've put out about what lotteries are. Oh, help save the children in their education, and do such good things in economic development. You don't even know that economic development is Agenda 21. You don't even know that. And for those of you that do, congratulations, thank you very much. I wasn't speaking to you. And this is a big deal here for people to figure out. What the state does is state interest. It's not for the producers. Absolutely. This is how we're going to identify OMA in Oregon for being the attorney usurpers that the felons they are. But notwithstanding that, they're terrified of you finding out, because when you find out that this can be dealt with and fixed, you don't think they know this? That someone snuck in and got their trick? That you won't have confidence, you won't play the game. I'm saying don't play the game, folks. I've been saying this before this, but here it is. This is like your voters. This is like the voting. It's like anything digital. The fix is in. A lot of you may not play the game, but you get sucked in, folks. I'd sure like to, behind the woodshed, 1 million would be just dandy. I don't need 1 billion. But, that's just not, it's not principled to play it. It's a fraud and a lie to play it. But the fix is in. They figured out how to get in. They caught this guy. Folks, that really answers why and how the state can have more than one winner, isn't it? When someone were to come in and buy all the numbers, all of them, buy them all. At the time, it was the odds were 14 million to 1. So you'd have to have $14 million, and you'd pay for you just pick, have the computer pick every number for you, every combination. And you would win that jackpot. And then I told you I found that when people did that, there would be more than one a lot of times. On low jackpots below that amount, no. It was always one, it seemed. Maybe two, sometimes. Every once in a while. But this now answers why, when someone were to pick the right number, they would also then interject another number to have two people win, so that it would protect against someone becoming a business to buy lottery numbers every time they had a lottery, to win whenever the jackpot went high enough above the odds payment. At that time, it was 14 million to 1. So you had to put 14 million in, and if anything above 14 million, minus whatever they're going to take off the top, you would make money every time you did that. That it made sense here if the fix was in by the state side, not this crook here that figured it out or got an inside job. That the government sits in the behind to maintain control of this, and you wouldn't know that the fix is in even still. That here it is, folks. Keep playing that Powerball. Keep enforcing the oppressor against you. Or don't. Call it out. Call out the economic development for what it is. Call out what they do with it for what it is. Or agree. And I'd say that because economic development is one of the things that we fight all the time, that a lot of the attorneys and a lot of the government wants to say, oh, let's do economic development. The counties, let's do economic development. That's a plunder, and it's a prejudice against the producers. If you don't understand that, you got to do research. I don't have the time to go through that. Just know that it's there. Another thing that's not something we may believe, but the evidence of the thing is there. The evidence is there to not trust this on many levels, and we talk about it all the time, not to like it at all. I don't. What it does, what it's come about, and it's the United States of America is part and parcel to it. It made Zio West. It's this instrumentality in the world that's supposed to be looking at bringing together the nations under international law, so they don't attack each other and make a peaceful resolutions before they have to attack. How's that working for them, folks? But the United Nations human rights, little animal rights envoy to Palestine territories, resigns over Israeli denial of access. All I want to say about this is proving that the UN is useless. Useless. Waste of time, waste of money, waste of our energy, and the conduit for destruction on a global scale. Another evidence to me, that's all I want to read about that. I could go on and tell you why. It's really fascinating about what the what the Zionists are saying, how they justify their genocide, their apartheid, their lack of warrant, felonies going on over there, and the world watches. Sickening, completely sickening. Human rights, animal rights envoy in the UN fails, folks. Absolutely useless on the world stage. And I want you to hear that again. This is the hub of what we're dealing with as a people, whether you really understand that or not, want to agree with it or not. The evidence is everywhere. And I come here every week to explain it. Part of me, I just said that, part of me flashes and says, how in the heck did you even get here? How did you scope in on this? How did you target? What a heat-seeking missile that I've had to come here. In the moment in history that it's being exposed or can be exposed or it's ready to flex its muscle or rip out of its shirt and tear up the world. How are we all here at the same time is that awesome wonder. That's beyond science, folks. I don't even question that anymore. But part of me wonders, how am I here to do this? And also wonders, why am I so ineffectual at some level? Effectual to some level and ineffectual at some level. And then so that's the wondering, how do you trying to communicate better, try to do things better. That's just an ongoing process. That the Israeli justifying this genocide that's happening over there, having all the reasons, and no one saying breeds over into the associations you keep. How the gang members all work. United States government is taking credit for bringing peace to Syria, and they're not joking. I was reminded of this when about the prior story, that how they excuse their crime. The State Department spokesman John Kirby is raising eyebrows after he released a recap of 2015 success stories in which he credits the United States for bringing peace and security to Syria and stepping up to help the country's people at a difficult time. Folks, remember, peace is war. Security is destruction. Remember that. Don't forget it. That's what he's really saying. But it is astonishing for them to use the phrase. It's astonishing to listen to them take credit for destroying people. And crickets, folks, we're sitting here listening to this nonsense. It's the same mentality that moves against us, that allows the UN to look like something completely useless. All these things are, ultimately the lottery is completely useless, except to be put in the state's place of interest to promote the state's interest against yours. These people are, I just can't help to say it again, these people are brilliant, and they're not that smart. That's the humbling part for me. These people aren't that smart. But they're good little robots, and they take instruction well, and they do like their benefits. They do like their benefits. It looks like I'm at the end of the time, so thank you for tuning in today. Hope I brought some more. Spent a little bit of time more on the Hammonds, the Bundy thing that I wanted to, but I don't think it was unimportant. I think it laid out quite a few things. Those of you taking notes, I do appreciate because I do know there's a lot of knowledge in what I'm saying. We've got to identify what the right thing is to do, identify those that are going to do the wrong thing, and I hope we can get some information to the right people to start to do the right thing. That'll be the counties taking on the real obligation and not being influenced out of their obligation. And so anybody, markonthebeach.yahoo.com, if you want to, maybe I can direct you to some stuff. JeffersonMiningDistrict.com has a lot of information there to start with. To reallibertymedia.com. And Grimner, thank you very much for what you do there in the servers, and WTWorldTruth.org. And Grammy Mary, thank you for keeping that up and making me a part of that, allowing me to go out to the world. And UCY.TV is syndication, and all the terrestrial broadcasters that pick up the broadcast. Thank you very much, everybody. Pass around the podcast. Don't hesitate. I don't do that. You really have to do that for me. More importantly, understand how to engage yourself. Donate where you can and how you can to all these people that are helping this voice to get out. There's not that many places. Remember, Tuesday, I did remember, National Intel Report on Republic Broadcasting Network with John Statmiller. I'm going to be talking probably for 2 hours with him on this BLM issue. We'll see what we can get said. I tend to move a different I have a different mindset when I'm a guest, so a different thing kind of comes out there. So thank you for today, and I hope everything works out. Have a good week. We'll try to see you next week.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.